Welcome back to We Miss Our Sleep. I am Sean, otherwise known as Imperi. I am joined by
Sophie. I'm also known as ProsieWoe, Prosie of many woes. How's your sleep been since our last video?
pretty bad.
Pretty bad? What was the story that got you?
Interestingly, it was the Skinwalker one, the very first one we did.
Really?
Because the camp one was good, but I didn't really dwell on it too much.
I was just thinking about Ava's younger brother. That haunted me into the night.
No, that didn't bother me as much. I was like, I'm pretty certain it's this, and if not, well, oh well. Now, the Skinwalker one, I think because it didn't include so much and it left a lot out, it left me thinking more about what could have been.
Realising stuff.
Well, when they did short paragraphs where it's like he would like sonic speed run through the cells of a night, I was trying to think about that a little bit more in detail. And as funny as it is hearing running across, it's also a bit terrifying if in real life you hear fast, wet footsteps.
Like an upset duck running towards you at supersonic speeds.
Yeah, but you can't see the duck.
There is a phobia for not being able to see a duck,
There
but
is.
Knowing a duck is watching you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the story that we're reading today?
No, unfortunately, it's not a duck. It's a scarecrow.
A scarecrow.
So this is the Scarecrow. It was posted to r/nosleep 3 days ago by the user Great Burger 1.
So Great Burger 1 is hot, fresh off the press.
Hot, fresh, off press. I have read this.
I haven't.
Yes, so I read the first bit, and then I wanted to see what it was like for the channel. Okay. So I've read the lot, and I know what it is.
I'm a little bit nervous though, because you scroll down, and it's a little bit like when you see, if you go to the end of Harry Potter, and it's like Albus kissed Harry goodbye, and you're like, what happened there?
Wait, did you see any words?
I saw Jimmy.
You saw Jimmy.
Uh-huh.
Cool, that's fine, because I don't think Jimmy is in the first bit. So we've already found out the main character's name.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay. The Scarecrow. When I was a kid, we lived in a remote, forgotten corner of the countryside. The kind of place people drive through without ever realising it's inhabited. Just a gas station and a few rundown shops, swallowed by endless fields. My parents chose this place for reasons I never understood. They worked themselves into early graves, toiling in our cornfields that stretched out forever, disappearing into the horizon. As a child, there was something almost magical about the isolation. But as I grew older, that magic curdled into resentment. My sisters and I had to drive an hour west just to get to school, and the day we all left home for good was a liberation. But even more than the isolation, what drove me away was my father's obsession with scarecrows. He planted them everywhere. Every inch of our miles-long fields was dotted with them. I never understood how he managed it, but I swear there wasn't a patch of ground without one of those grotesque figures.
Can I just ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so they're toiling away in the cornfields. There's no damn corn in it. It's full of scarecrows. He's got scarecrow fields.
We're corning away in the scarecrow fields.
Every inch is covered in scarecrows, cornfields. But your father needs to talk to someone, because I think he's farming scarecrows.
Yeah, and I don't get the obsession with scarecrows, because in a sense for what they do, yeah, pretty damn cool, the fact that they scare off the birds. They are. How do you feel about scarecrows? Because I do find them a little spooky.
Do you like Stardew Valley?
I play it. I want to be better at it. But...
So in Stardew Valley, you can collect different scarecrows.
Okay.
I actually have a lot of feelings about scarecrows. I've realised now you've asked me this question.
Good.
So in Stardew Valley, you can get some nice scarecrows that are quite cool, quite rare. Funny guys. They just stand there. They're not really scary.
Okay.
But there's also another scarecrow. I actually have a crush on a scarecrow.
No.
It's if you know Howl's Moving Castle.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know there's the scarecrow in Howl's Moving Castle, Turnip Head, and then he turns into the handsome prince at the end.
I forgot that part, but yes.
I don't like the handsome prince. I do have a crush on him in scarecrow form.
You like the scarecrow, not the prince.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm glad you have told everyone that.
Everyone on the internet is now an open secret. I have a crush on Turnip Head.
Quick, download this video and use it against her in the future.
Perfect. Clip that. Clip that now.
Alright, should we carry on?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. They were unlike any scarecrows I'd ever seen. Even now, as an adult, I get chills remembering them. They had an eerie realism to them, a grotesque hyper-detail that made your skin crawl. Their faces were twisted into expressions that seemed almost human. Almost human, eyes that bulged unnervingly, lips contorted in silent screams, and their bodies. They didn't stand on poles like normal scarecrows. They were crucified.
I was literally about to say, these are crucified bodies. They're not scarecrows. They're Roman candles at this point.
So, because for me, when I was first reading it, the moment he had gone, the hyper detail that made your skin crawl, I was like, so that's a body.
They're bodies, then they're crucified. Your dad's a serial killer. He doesn't farm corn, he farms people. And when the people, get out of line...
Yeah, because I would feel like, as a person who doesn't see too many scarecrows, I would like to think that I could work out a scarecrow from a dead body on a stick.
It depends, because there's like those Halloween decorations sometimes in haunted houses where they're like, oh, that looks a bit real. That happened once. That was a genuine thing that happened.
I know it also happened on roller coaster rides.
Yeah, like the skeletons, and they're like, oh, those aren't real. Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I don't think you could probably walk past a field and be like, that's a body, or that's a scarecrow.
I would preface this by saying I do need to be closer to the scarecrow. I couldn't do it from a distance.
So you can like give it a sniff and be like, body.
Pretty much, or even just to see what the hyper-realistic detail is.
I also find as well, in online scary stories, that it's always like the hyper-realistic blood, and it's like,
So real blood.
So it's real blood then.
Yeah.
So that's a real body then.
Because with scarecrows like this, because it's a bird,
yeah,
all you really need is a bag.
Do you know what else you can just deflect a bird with?
A bat.
A CD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, my dad has them on his allotments. It's CD strings.
Yeah.
Because that scares. It's the metallic.
Scarecrows.
It's the metallic shine which gets them, and it's also the sounds it makes when it hits in the wind.
Does it play the CD?
It doesn't play the CD, but it has like the wind going through the hollow hole.
Oh, I see. So CDs are innately terrifying to crows. Do you reckon there's a pair of crows that are sitting there reading the Scarecrow, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's a CD." Sorry, I won't interrupt you now. Carry on.
How could you? All right, next bit. Where were we?
You were at. They were crucified.
Cool. They were crucified. Their heads hung low, arms spread too wide, legs crossed unnaturally. From their midsections, hay spilled out like entrails, and their long, matted hair dripped black as if soaked in oil. My father always claimed it was just mops he dipped in paint, but even as a kid, that explanation never sat right with me.
Ooh. Yeah, your dad's killing people, like for sure.
Alright, do you want to take what's on the screen, or do you want to do the 3 paragraphs?
I'll do 3 paragraphs since that's what we've decided.
Cool.
Unless I feel like I want to do more. You can't stop me. Maybe you can. You'll just turn the microphone off.
Okay, just turn the microphone off.
You can turn the microphone off. I was in my 2nd year at the University of Michigan when I got the call from my mother. My father was dead. The news hit me like a punch to the gut, cold fear trickling down my spine. I can't say that any time I've, had to have a conversation of someone's dead, it's not really fear is the first thing.
Yeah, it's a bit odd that fear has become the first thing for his father's dead.
Unless you're kind of like,
dad's dead.
Yeah, exactly. That's not quite right. Scary. I listened to my mother's voice crackle through the phone, the words barely registering. But in that moment, all I could think about were those scarecrows. I imagined my father strung up like one of them, crucified in his own field. I shook the image from my mind, chalking it up to grief, to the shock of losing him. My mother pleaded with us to come home for the funeral. Reluctantly, we agreed. But the day before my flight, my sister called me. Her voice was hushed, trembling, as if speaking too loudly might awaken something. She needed to tell me something she'd kept buried for years. I asked if she had spoken to our other sister, but she said that when she tried, she was shut down, told never to mention it again. And with a shaky breath, she began to tell me her secret, and as she spoke, goosebumps prickled my skin.
I find it odd that in that first sentence there, it's the fact of my mother begged for us to come to the funeral, and we reluctantly agreed.
Well, like, you're not going to your dad's funeral?
Exactly.
I mean, we don't know how people's families work or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, I don't know. There's something up with this dad. I think his dad's a serial killer. They're scared of the dad, and that's why they don't want to come back.
But the dad's dead now.
Yeah.
It's not like he's going to kill you from beyond. Because
it's a creepypasta or a nosleep.
Oh, he wasn't dead all along. It was ours.
It was ours. We were lying. Back in high school, when she'd been looking for a place to throw a party, trying to impress some boy, she remembered an old abandoned barn our father used when he was still raising cattle, a few miles out from our house. One night, she drove out there, thinking everyone was at home asleep. She slipped through the side door, and what she saw inside has haunted her forever. May I? I kind of want it.
You can continue.
Oh, thank you.
Let's move it down here.
I'll let you do the paragraph after.
Cool.
She found our father on his knees before an impossibly tall man. The figure's face was shrouded, his hands engulfing our father's face, fingers long and bony, stretching out around his skull like a grotesque cage. She thought, but she couldn't be sure, that the thing's head was swollen, oversized pumpkin, distorted and bulging in ways that shouldn't be possible. They were chanting something, a low, guttural murmur in a language she didn't recognise. Before she could process what she was seeing, she heard rustling all around her. Panic seized her, and she bolted for the car, driving away as fast as she could. As she fled, she caught glimpses of tall figures lurking at the edges of the road, and every mile she drove, the Scarecrow seemed to turn to follow her.
So
Scarecrow cult. Scarecrow cult.
I'm wondering back there, just because. Right, so this is.
Aye.
I'm wondering. So she's saying about back in high school, she was there to try and impress a boy, which I'm going to assume was the dad. So she was trying to impress the dad. Go with me on this, because I don't know if I am getting this right. It sounds like the secret she's telling her kids is that when she first met the dad, she noticed the dad basically praying to a Scarecrow cult. And then after this, running away and being scared, decided to marry him and have kids.
That's where you've got a crucial detail wrong.
Okay, what's the detail?
He's on the phone to his sister. This is his sister.
What, so the sister found him?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Because
for some reason, I read this as... the mum was saying she began to tell me her secret, so I must have missed him calling the mum.
For a moment, I was like, hang on, this is not like a Hills Have Eyes situation. This is, I know they're like in a rural forest, somewhat rural farming fields, but for goodness sake, leave the incest out of it.
No, I wasn't going down that route. I was going down the route of why was it that she saw this horrible secret, but then turned around and went back.
Oh no, because it's fine.
No, I got the wrong character.
It is the wrong character. It's okay. You're fine. And please tell us what she saw when she got home.
To the next. All right. So when she got home, she hid under her covers until morning. She told our other sister about it once, but was met with ridicule and told never to speak of it again. She buried it until now. The phone call from our mother had unearthed it all, and she was terrified that the Scarecrows, or whatever they represented, had something to do with our father's death. Her voice cracked into a manic laugh as she told me, saying how ridiculous she sounded, but I could hear the fear behind her words. She begged me to convince our mother to come to us instead, to avoid going back to that house. Despite how insane it all sounded, I believed her. There was always something wrong with those Scarecrows, something unnatural. I called our other sister, telling her everything, urging her to convince our mother to leave that place and never look back. But she lashed out at me, calling us both paranoid. She threatened to cut us out of her life if we didn't come home for the funeral.
Can I just say, if my dad had fields upon fields upon fields of scarecrows, because every inch of these fields is covered with a scarecrow, I'm not going back there. And if my sister enjoys that many scarecrows, there's a question. That's ridiculous. I think he's being quite rational here.
It's the ones as well for it being the hyper-realistic scarecrows. It was like, I like the scarecrows, and they're the potato sacks with just like black button string.
They're not okay.
They're there for the function. But when you've got the super hyper-realistic, all possibly looks real type
and then
of
he's
scarecrow,
saying like, oh no, it's a mop
then
in
it's
black
what
tie.
kind of bird are you trying to trick? Are you trying to scare the Einstein of birds from your corn?
If it was the Einstein of birds, it would be like, that's a body.
It would also be like, that's a body, and I know that you're putting these things up to scare me.
But also, birds enjoy bodies.
Interesting.
No, hang on. So, you know, like carrion birds?
Uh-huh.
Delicious.
Yeah, but crows.
Delicious.
Crows enjoy, but do you know, I'm not going to question that.
Yeah, and like, because they're scavengers, aren't they? So some birds enjoy eating dead bodies. So actually, if anything, you're just inviting bigger, scarier birds.
Or you're tricking them into be like, oh, human body. Hey, what?
I'm not a horse. This is ridiculous. Play my Oasis CD.
Alright, I think I've got this bit,
Yep.
and then I will let you take from here. Cool. So, I was scared, but I didn't want to lose my sister over it. I began to wonder if maybe we were just being paranoid. Our sister did have a history with psychedelics. After all, maybe it was just some hallucination. I tried to convince myself it was all in our heads, a trick of the mind. But deep down, I knew better.
The night before my flight, I had a nightmare. I found myself in the middle of our cornfield, the stalks towering above me, hemming me in. The sky was a vivid, unnatural blue, too perfect to be real. A trail of red powder stretched before me. He's like he's in Minecraft. He's in Minecraft. That's where he is.
The redstone bricks below my feet.
And I clicked the lever. And the lights turned on.
The hatch went click. And I was lowered into the minecart.
Into the mines. The mines of Moria. A trail of red powder stretched before me, leading me on for what felt like hours. Eventually, I reached a clearing, a circle of dead stalks. In the centre stood a single stake, a lone scarecrow tied to it. But as I got closer, I realised it wasn't a scarecrow at all. It was a man, dressed in the ragged clothes of one. I felt a force behind me, unseen hands pushing me towards the figure. As I approached, dread coiled in my guts, and I saw the scarecrow's face. It was my own. Suddenly, I felt long, spindly fingers wrap around my shoulders, and I jolted awake, drenched in sweat. I glanced back at the clock. Late. I scrambled out the door, catching an Uber to the airport just in time. The flight home was a blur of anxiety and unease. By the time I reached our house, night had fully settled in. I sat in the car, staring at the darkened windows, my heart pounding as I tried to gather the courage to go inside. The house loomed before me, shadows creeping up its walls, giving it an almost sinister presence.
So dude had nightmare that he was on Scarecrow.
Yeah. Well, that's very much like... I've been in a similar situation before. You know, being like, oh my god, it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we've all had those kind of nightmares. Not necessarily like me Scarecrow related, but I've 100% been in a situation where I was like, and the ghost in the mirror was me.
I find it odd as well that all of this really has stemmed up just from the fact of finding out his dad has died.
Like, wouldn't you be like scared of scarecrows?
Yeah, you'd
your
kind
whole
of
life?
you'd kind of have. I would feel like you would have this underlying bit where it's like I've always found scarecrows uneasy because of my childhood. Like I can kind of deal with it, but it still comes up every now and then.
Yeah.
And now it's been my dad died, and all I can think about is scarecrows.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit weird. It's not the first thing I would have thought of, but I'm sure the story will explain itself. Take us through.
Cool. Right, I think we are here. When I finally stepped through the front door, the heavy silence enveloped me like a shroud. Everyone was inside, my sisters and my mother, but there was something terribly off. My mother looked different. She was gaunt, her skin stretched tight over her bones.
She's not a skinwalker. Not baggy.
Not
baggy enough.
She's the reverse one. She's a walk skinner.
She's a walk skinner. Oh my god.
She was gaunt, her skin stretched tight over her bones, and her hair was thin and falling out in clumps. Dark circles hollowed her eyes, which darted nervously, as if seeing things the rest of us couldn't. I asked her what had happened, but she just gave me a strange look, a mix of confusion and annoyance. I just need some rest, she murmured, her voice distant, like she was speaking through a fog. My sisters exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't our mother. She'd always been a strong, sharp woman, but now she seemed like a hollow shell of herself. Trying to piece together what was going on, I hesitantly asked about our father. I expected to hear that he was at the morgue, but her answer sent a chill down my spine. He's tucked away somewhere safe, she said with a flat, emotionless tone. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. My sisters and I stared at each other, alarmed. Something was very wrong.
You know how we spoke about Octodad in the last episode? Do you reckon that this is like instead of it being an octopus as a skinwalker, this is a scarecrow skinwalker?
Well, so it's like, where's Dad? Rustling sounds.
Yeah.
Oh, he's upstairs, huh?
He's being eaten by horses. Delicious. I'm enjoying this so far. It is quite creepy. I'm trying to use humour to make myself feel better.
Humour to mask the fears.
To mask pain. Okay, we're here. Our mother, seemingly almost irritated by our concern, abruptly decided she was tired and wanted to go to bed. She shuffled off to her room without another word. I bet you the scarecrow is in the bed. I bet you it is. This is a whole weirdo thing. My oldest sister tried to downplay it, suggesting that maybe she was just in shock. She excused herself to her old bedroom, leaving me and my other sister alone at the kitchen table, surrounded by the oppressive silence of the house. I want to know why the author is not naming the sisters.
Yeah. We've only had...
the sister and the other sister. It's kind of like you, Sean, and then the other Sean.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're the other Sean in the scenario.
I think the other bit as well is because we scrolled down to see the comments bit, you saw a name. At the current moment, no name has been said.
No name has been said. No one knows who anyone is.
It's been me, father, mother, sisters.
Yeah. But I know you call your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I call my siblings by their full name, full title.
No, you don't.
No, I don't.
You call them by a nickname.
I call them by a nickname. But that's the thing, like, surely you can, like, put in nicknames in
You
that.
could be like, my sister so-and-so who we called this, and then you know that, and then later down the line when they call them by that, it's like, oh, it might be that sister.
Yeah.
Or even put nickname and then in brackets for us, their name.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's just sister.
My sister.
My sister.
I put...
Oh, sorry, we didn't finish that
No, we
one.
hadn't finished that. You're taking my words away. The second time today. I put on a pot of coffee, knowing neither of us would be able to sleep that night. We tried to distract ourselves, talking about funny memories from our childhood. Their childhood sound bloody miserable.
Hey, do you remember that one time that Dad puts scarecrows down every square inch of the field?
Do you remember that time when I walked into the barn and saw my dad getting head from a scarecrow? Or my like, what the hell?
Do you remember that time that we couldn't pay the rent because we weren't producing corn, we was just producing scarecrows?
Do you remember that time when we found all of those mops dipped in ink on top of all of the scarecrow poles, and Dad was like, no, there's definitely a mop, and we were like, that's a whole body.
Do you remember when half the population of the town just disappeared?
Yeah, that was weird that day.
Oh, what a day.
What a day. She told me about the time she broke into an animal shelter to rescue a dog that was already lined up for a home, and I recounted the embarrassing story about how I got into my frat. Oh god, he's a frat boy.
And on top of that, she's like, it's an embarrassing story. I won't tell you what it is, though. But our dad did give head to a scarecrow.
Yeah, Dad, yeah, that's the way around it was, isn't it? Yeah, not the scarecrow giving head to the dad.
So her embarrassing story is she stole someone's dog.
And this guy's embarrassing story is how he got into his frat society.
I did some things, man.
Yeah, I don't even know how you get into frats because I'm a lady, so I don't go into frats.
I go into sororities.
Also, we're not American, so we don't really have the kind of frat culture.
No.
The closest we have is at university when we do our societies. They might have some kind of initiation.
Yeah.
But it's nothing. It's like when I did Ultimate Frisbee, the initiation was go to one social and you played bingo.
See, because I was a studious student, I didn't sign up for any clubs.
Boring.
Yeah.
I will preface, though, the bingo wasn't like bingo with numbers. It was tasks and things you had to do by challenging the experienced people. But it was things like playing a drinking game, downing your drink before them, jumping over one of them, or doing the worm. It was like dumb stuff like that. The American football team, I think, was going to have some kind of freshers' night to initiate people. They also did a roast week. I wasn't there long enough for the roast week, but they would pick a fresher and they would roast them all week.
See, that's called bullying.
But no, because after that, then you're A-okay. Physically.
No, you're not. Mentally, you're not. I can't handle it when someone gives me bad criticism.
My personal favourite, though, was like there was a guy, I can't remember his name, but they picked him, and in his Instagram bio, because he'd joined the American Football Society, he posted a photo of himself with one of the jerseys, but he'd also put under his Instagram info, he'd put the #1 quarterback at the team. And everyone was going, what the fuck are you talking about? You're not even fourth. So he was ripped for that.
Well...
And at that stage, rightfully so.
Listen, sometimes social media... I've listened to a really interesting case, but we're going to get really off topic if I talk about that. Back onto topic. I put on a pot of coffee, knowing that I was asleep that night. Rescue dog really lined up. Here we go, frat. Somehow, as the night wore on, we ended up finding one of Dad's old liquor cabinets and spiking our coffee with whiskey. I bet that tastes dusty. We played childish pranks on each other, laughing more than we had in years, but beneath it all, there was a tension, a fear we couldn't shake.
So that kind of like bit there makes me feel odd, because if you reach a stage where you spike your drinks so that you get the bit of the buzz, and then you're laughing more than you ever had, but underneath you're scared.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people react really weirdly in stressful situations.
Yeah, but I don't know if to this bit was like, it was tense and we were scared, but also we were laughing more than we ever had in our life.
Yeah, laughing is a fear response. That's valid.
I can get that as a laughing response, but more than anything, even the funny time you stole someone's dog.
It's hysterical, isn't it? It's hysteria. Eventually, the conversation drifted back to that night she saw. Hesitantly, I asked if she remembered taking any drugs, maybe shrooms or something. She shook her head, her eyes haunted. I was sober, she said quietly, her voice trembling. I hadn't touched anything in months. She didn't want to talk about it anymore, and I didn't push. We ended up falling asleep on the couch around midnight, the unease settling over us like a blanket. I woke up suddenly with a pounding headache. The clock read 5 in the morning, but it was still pitch dark outside. It's pitch black outside. Goodness me. Winter in this part of the country meant the sun wouldn't rise for another hour, and sometimes it felt like it never came up at all. I stumbled into the bathroom, my footsteps echoing in the silent house. As I stood there, I felt a sudden chill. A cold so sharp it cut through the whiskey fog in my head. I spun round, expecting to see someone behind me, but there was nothing. Just shadows.
What part of the country do you think they're in?
I don't know. I've assumed this is America, but I feel like I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm thinking America because I'm based in cornfields. I'm thinking it's somewhere in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Because the bit I just kind of got from there was that, you know, the part of the country here meant that. Hang on, I've got to find the thing again, otherwise I'll get it wrong. It was like winter in this part of the country meant the sun wouldn't rise for another hour, and that was then waking up at 5 in the morning. I feel like, irregardless, 6 a.m. is like almost normal sunrise time. I think that's quite early for winter.
No, because winter's going to be dark when you leave, dark when you come back. Yeah.
But I felt like the sun didn't really come up until, in some cases, like 7:30, maybe even 8 o'clock for here.
I mean, I when I drive to work forward and back, I'm normally driving in the dark and then coming back in the dark, and then I don't see any sunlight.
See, I'm trying to remember back to school because I distinctly remember waking up for school when it was still dark, and the sun was just coming up as we was getting out the door, and that was normally just before 8.
Yeah, it's pretty rubbish.
I'll take the rest. Cool. Shaking off the eerie feeling, I walked back into the living room, but my sister was gone. I assumed she must have gone to her old bedroom to sleep more comfortably, so I decided to do the same. But when I entered my room, I noticed the window was wide open. The freezing night air rushed in, biting at my skin. As I moved to close it, something outside caught my eye, and my blood ran cold. There, near the edge of the cornfield, I saw my sister standing, her figure illuminated by the dim moonlight. She was staring into the dark rows of corn as if contemplating stepping inside. I whispered her name, hoping to catch her attention without waking anyone else, but she didn't respond. I grabbed a pen from my desk and I tossed it towards her, missing completely, but the slight noise made her turn her head, just a fraction. I saw her face, blank and distant, her eyes locked onto something unseen.
That's what I look like in the morning when you try and get my attention for something.
I have to throw a pen at you.
I have to throw a pen at me.
Horribly miss.
Horribly
and you move
miss.
Ever so slightly.
Blank, distant, eyes locked on nothing.
A sickening fear gripped me, rooting me in place. My legs felt heavy, paralysed by a dread I couldn't fully understand. I knew I had to help her, but I couldn't move. I forced myself to turn away and crept to our other sister's room, whispering her name. No response. I called out a little louder, but still, she didn't stir. This was strange. She was always such a light sleeper. I reached out to shake her awake, and as I touched her shoulder, she rolled over. I recoiled in horror. Her face was horrifyingly disfigured, shriveled and sunken like a dried-out husk. Her eyes were hollow pits, her mouth agape in a silent scream. I stumbled backwards, my own scream clawing up my throat. What was this? What happened to her?
I started pinching myself, praying to wake up from this nightmare, but nothing changed. Panic surged through me as I remembered my mother. I ran to her room, every instinct in my body screaming at me to stop, to turn back, but I pushed on. When I burst into her room, I saw her standing by the window, staring out into the darkness. Her posture was unnaturally stiff. She didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge me at all. My heart pounded in my ears as I took a step closer, my voice barely a whisper. "Mum?" She didn't move, just kept staring out into the night. And then, in a voice that wasn't hers, a voice that was cold and empty, she spoke. "They're waiting for us." Chills ran down my spine, and I could barely force out a few words. I asked her, "Who?" But she didn't turn around. She just kept staring out into the night, unmoving, her body stiff and unnatural. That's when I knew I had to get out of here. Whatever was left of my family was gone, replaced by something unrecognizable, something inhuman. I was alone now, and I had to escape before whatever had taken them got to me, too. That is horrible. Oy.
I've got chills going down my spine.
How are you finding it?
It's really good. The descriptions are very graphic.
Nice. Okay, we're on the last stretch. I bolted from my house, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't dare look back as I sprinted to my rental car, fumbling with the keys in my panic. As soon as I got the door open, I jumped in, started the engine, and sped off into the darkness, the house disappearing in my rearview mirror. A month has passed since that night, but the horror still clings to me like a shadow. I thought I had escaped, but last week, the local authorities came to see me. They told me my mother and my sister were both dead. I tried to tell them everything I knew, about the scarecrows, the barn, the man with the pumpkin head, but they looked at me like I was crazy. Of course, they didn't believe me. They suspected it was me who had hurt them, but they had no evidence to prove it. When I asked about my other sister, they said that there was no trace of her, as if she had simply vanished off the face of the earth. They said that the search could take months, maybe years, but they were doing everything they could. But I know better. I know where she is. She's in that cornfield, trapped in whatever darkness took my mother. I can still see her standing there, on the edge of the rows, looking lost, looking empty. It haunts me, knowing that she's out there, and whatever possessed my mother has her now too. I don't know if I will ever see her again, but I know that whatever was out there that night is still out there, waiting, watching. As long as I'm alive, I'll never be free of it. The only escape is death. Maybe if I end my own life, I can break free from this nightmare. Maybe I'd be giving in to whatever it wants, but at least I won't have to be here to see it anymore. At least I won't have to live with the fear. I'm so tired of being afraid. Goodbye.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We've got the last paragraph, which you can have.
Yeah, I can do it. Oish. Okay. This was the suicide note found on Jimmy Brooks' person. Jimmy was a patient at Forest Lake facility, diagnosed with severe schizophrenia. He had somehow managed to escape and convince himself his family was being tormented by scarecrows and strange figures in the cornfields. Tragically, every member of his family was brutally killed by him. The status of his sister, Martha Brooks, remains unknown. I have feelings. So, I think we have this discussion a lot when it comes to like horror stories and things like that. And I always find it more scarier if it's not linked to a mental illness. Because I think as soon as you say it's a mental illness, then you're kind of like, oh, so this is somebody that just needed help and kind of grounding and different realizations. Whereas I think if it was genuinely something in the field that is so just unknowable and so, you know, like, yeah, he's right. But it'd be interesting if it came from a place of like, you know, his dad was actually putting scarecrows up to protect them from something in the cornfields, because they're scarecrows, right? They're there to scare things away. Yeah. It would have been a really interesting angle, which is where I thought the story was going, that the scarecrows were there to try and protect the family. And when his dad died, there's no one else protecting and maintaining the scarecrows anymore. So that when he got there, it could have been like, oh, the scarecrows were becoming dilapidated and like they're not being maintained, and so lots of them are falling apart. And then when he gets there, his mum's getting like turning into a husk and his sister's whatever. And then when he leaves, I just think that would be so much more interesting, because that's where I thought it was going. I always feel a little bit let down when it's like, it's schizophrenia, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, so I chose this story because I really liked the whole bit except for the last two paragraphs.
Yeah, like I don't want a logical explanation for someone who's going through a mental illness. I want it to be an unknowable supernatural occurrence. Because that's what makes it scary. If I can explain it away via mental illness, then I feel sad, because it's just sad that Jimmy, if it is like he's genuinely diagnosed with schizophrenia, I know they said, oh, there's no evidence he actually killed them. fine, but like a mental illness can be really scary, and it's important that you have representation in it. I don't know if it's got a place in No Sleeps as a explanation to a scary story.
Yeah, because I would have put this down to the supernatural angle of this kind of being that it sounds like the father had almost like traded something with him to keep them safe, and now that he's gone, they're there to try and like survive.
That's what I kind of thought it was going down, because I was like, oh, okay. And then there's fear because like when you're a little kid, scarecrows are really scary, and like I can understand like when there's fields upon fields of them, like that feels excessive, and that's what made me think, oh, there's something in the land that they're on that's supernatural. And then when it's like, oh, he's dead, oh, there's that fear. It's like an ancient fear. It's like an unknowable eldritch type fear. That's what I thought it was going to go for.
The other bit I get from it as well is because we've got that part here where it's like, okay, so he was diagnosed with severe schizophrenia and this is on his note.
Yeah.
You can't. It's almost like you can't take anything from this story. Like you can't really take it as value.
I like unreliable narrators. And I think there is definitely something to be said about a narrator who has made a mistake and is confused and convinced themselves, therefore convinces you. I don't know if this is... I don't know. Like, I think that the positives of this story was that it was genuinely creepy, and I think the descriptions, especially when it got to like the thick of the scarecrow's delusions and things like that.
Yeah.
Or like the scarecrow, whatever it is that Jimmy thinks he's seeing. I think that was brilliant, but it led me to think, this is high form supernatural scary farm unknowable, like don't look into the forest too hard, kids, because something will look back at you type thing. And I can just, and like, have you ever been around cornfields?
No, not
they're
particularly.
scary as heck. If you ever do like a maze and you get lost in a maze, you're panicking.
Yeah, I've done like mazes as a child, but they were ones that were maintained and also very clear about routes to take, or had a lot of foot traffic. So if you did get stuck, you could follow someone. Yeah,
the mazes I've been on as a child have been always really dense and really scary.
Yeah,
and I think that fear is palpable, and especially when it's like windy, it's really noisy.
I think as well there is also just a genuine fear of being scared, being lost in a cornfield.
Yeah.
Just from like some of the horror stuff we've seen, where any kind of mention in a horror film that there's a farm, it's like, it's fucking corn, isn't it?
There's always corn, man. Climate for corn.
Well, I don't get how corn just became so scary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was beautifully written. It is genuinely scary. It's just a shame that it kind of ended on, it's because Jimmy has schizophrenia and he's a patient and he's being treated, and it's like, oh, now I just feel really sad for him. I don't feel spooked anymore, I feel sad. But maybe that was the point. Maybe I'm not the writer, so maybe that was the intention.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was, I liked where it was going.
In comparison to the other ones that we've read, where would you put this on our tier list?
On our tier list? I would put it on... I'm going to put it in B tier. Reason being is the last paragraph.
Annoyingly, I was also thinking the same. So I was like, this is a really good story, but including the last paragraph, it's one where it's like, it's good, but because of that ending, it's made it be like, that's a shame. And then it's kind of like... Yeah, the more I think about it coming away, it's starting to disappear.
And do you know what? Just going to put it out to the universe. It would be really interesting if there was a horror film that, you know, the person who has mental illness is actually correct, but because of people's perceptions of them, they are putting themselves in harm's way. That would be really interesting.
The first film that came to mind talking about that wasn't a horror film, it was Independence Day. The pilot who's like, no, I was probed by aliens, and no one believes him. And then the aliens appear and they're like, I was right the whole time.
And you guys gaslit me. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, it'll be really interesting to have a story like that, because like as a reader, you'll be then like, oh, this is an unreliable narrator because of your own perceptions and schemas and how you've interacted with people who have been, you know, living with mental health issues, only to realise, no, not only is he right, this is really dangerous. Yeah. and because then you can like spawn it into like, oh, so Jimmy's taken over maintaining the scarecrows, and then as he becomes an older man, then it's like, oh, there's a weird guy there who's got fields upon fields of scarecrows and he's not growing anything, but we've abandoned him for like, you know, 50 years or something, and then some teenage kids come in and start kicking the scarecrows down, and Jimmy's like the scary older adult. But actually, he's like, then that's a perception as well on people who don't fit in with society, and they're like, he's trying to be helpful, but you dang kids keep knocking his scarecrows down. That would have been just really cool. But I feel like I'm making my own canon. I really enjoyed this though, as the story that it is. I've really enjoyed it.
As well as, I was thinking there, like the last bit there of like knocking the scarecrow over and not realising that bit. That made me think of Monster House.
Yes.
The house that's legitimately possessed by someone, and the old man is being deliberately bad to keep people away.
Yeah, because he loves the house and the house loves him. Yeah, that's a lovely little story. But yeah, so you'd put it on B tier too?
I would also agree B tier. I think if it wasn't for that last stanza, I would probably put this in A. But otherwise, I think it was really good. I think it's just the last bit. It's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, but that's all good. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Alright, that was The Scarecrow by Great Burger 1. If there are any stories out there that people would like for us to read, please do let us know below. And yeah, any comments or anything else, please do let us know.
No, don't let us know. No comments, no queries, no nothing, no complaints.
Or
not
don't.
Taking
I'll
suggestions.
turn comments off.
Leave them at the door.
Cool. Thank you guys for listening in, and we'll see you at the next one.
Bye!